Hello, YouTube. I'm so excited to connect with you guys today and do a super fun Q&A. So my intention for 2024 is to provide you all with a bit more long form content. And my intention with this is to really allow you all to get to know me and also just get to know what exactly this community is that I am creating and to provide you with more of my wisdom so that you can really understand and see what is behind her body wisdom. So, my name is Courtney. If you don't know me, I'm trying a little different setup today, and I lost my AirPods, so I'm going to use my old school headphones because I just like the way that the audio sounds when I use my microphone or AirPods. So since I lost my AirPods, we're gonna have to just roll with this cord. So recently in my Instagram stories, I posted a little question box for you all to just drop in any burning questions that you had on your hearts that you wanted to know about me, relationships, nervous system regulation, anxious attachment, attachment styles in general, really just anything that you had on your mind that you wanted to ask. And so let's get into it. So the first question that is asked is wanting to know a little bit more about my story, where I've come from, how I've gotten here. And then I also got a few questions about how did I become a holistic OT. So I'm going to kind of merge these two questions together because there's a lot of similarities because my business is so much of me. So I will talk about both of those. Go all the way back to where I was born, which is in Ohio. And I attended a private Christian school for kindergarten through senior year. And I am honestly deeply, deeply grateful that my parents provided that for me. I feel like it really provided me with this innocence, and I actually got to live a childhood. So I started dancing in elementary school all the way up until when I graduated, and that is where my love and passion for the body was really first created. For example, in dance, having to be so aware of where your toes are, where your fingers are, where your chest is, all of that was so helpful for me to really just have that connection to the sensations in my body and to have that body awareness. So I would say that dance really was that gateway for me to become really obsessed with the body and how that connection that you have or either don't have is really important later in your life. I coached a Couch to a 5K program for women it was really for anybody, but the women who were in this program were mostly in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even some women in their 60s. And I fell in love with that program. I loved connecting to those women. It just from there knew how much I loved coaching, and I loved helping women especially connect to their bodies and to do something that they thought that they were not even capable of. We would even meet in the middle of winter when it was snowing on the ground, and we would put those yak tracks on the bottom of our shoes and would run in the snow. And that reaffirmed to me that I really wanted to do something, because I was doing this when I was 19, 20, 21, but I really reaffirmed that I wanted to do something to help people connect to their bodies. So I ended up getting accepted into grad school in the Bay Area. So I moved to California from Ohio because I really just was okay, I'm ready to get out of Ohio. I'm ready to get out of my hometown, and I just want to try something new. So, it was a great experience. A lot of ups and downs in grad school. I also picked Dominican because they had a emphasis on a year of psychosocial. I loved the location, and then I liked the small size of the program. So after grad school, I ended up working in traditional hospital settings, so in acute rehab, centers, hospitals. I worked in outpatient settings as well. So I did outpatient neuro. I also did acute care where I worked like on the medical floors in the ICU. And then I also did home health. And that's kind of like a whole other conversation of my hospital experience. And maybe we'll leave that for another day. But I really loved working with my patients, but I slowly started learning that it was not for me for the long term. There's a lot that goes into this. I mean, I worked in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and that really shifted a lot for me. There was so much that was happening that I just really didn't agree with. There's a lot of politics that go into, working at a hospital. There's a lot of pros and cons. And I knew that there was going to be a time where I eventually was going to step away from that role. And I will say for me, it wasn't necessarily linear. Like I didn't just quit my job and then started Her Body Wisdom and all was great. I really had to find safety in my own nervous system to be able to start something and create something and trust that even though, the evidence wasn't there that it was going to be successful, but to trust in my vision, in my dream, and really that seed that God planted within me way back in 2013. And yeah, so it definitely was not a linear thing. I had to slowly dip my toes into it. So in 2020, I created Her Body Wisdom. And at first, I was doing mostly like in-home. I was going to my patients' homes to work on nervous system regulation. And then, the gift of 2020 is that we now are all on Zoom and doing a lot of things virtually. So I brought my practice online virtually, which was the best decision I ever made. And I had to slowly walk away from my hospital job. So I had to look at why I was so attached to the only way that you can be successful is if you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So again, I had to find that safety within myself to be able to step out on my own. So the way that I did this is I took some per diem jobs where I worked, as the least amount that I could in order to, feel safe with my income. And I also ended up taking travel jobs. So I would take, like a 3-month travel job, and then I would take a few weeks to months off to really dive into my business. And after like a year and a half of doing that traveling, I ended up moving to Maui for 4 months where I did a very chill home health job. It was really when I was living on Maui where I had that spaciousness and gift of time where, I wasn't, running off and doing things to fill up my time. And I really just found like so much space to create these programs that are now the backbone of Her Body Wisdom. And also I was working as an OT, but I just had so much free time when I was on Maui that I was able to dive into and start to trust and step out into this business model that I have. And it really was from there that things started to take off. And my boyfriend is a travel nurse, and he spent a lot of time in Maui with me as well. And then we went to Alaska for the summer, and that was just such a great way to be able to feel safety with being a business owner. And I just knew that, I knew that I was not being called to find a travel job in Alaska, and I was being called to really just trust the vision that I had for my business. And so I really leaned on that inner knowing and that feeling that I had within me where I just knew that this was the right thing to do. And then I came back to California because this is where my family lives, and I am really grateful for being able to trust this vision that God has planted on my heart and continue to expand Her Body Wisdom. And I just I'm really excited about seeing where God is going to take this business that I've created and this community of really amazing women, and just seeing how God is going to continue to allow that all to unfold. And I have some really big goals, and yeah, I'm just really excited for all of this to continue to unfold. So that's a little bit about being a holistic OT. And there's so much more that I can go into that. And definitely, if you have any questions about that, reach out to me. I actually work with quite a few women that are also looking to step out and create something, whether or not that's a business, a holistic OT business, or maybe it is a business about teaching people breath work or mindset coaching. And what we do is I help you find a sense of safety within your body so that you can trust these next steps and you can really step out into your own business and step out into what it is that you want to create, because sometimes it can be really difficult to do that if you have not created a sense of safety within your body and you have not. Okay, just had some technical difficulties, but I am back. So hopefully this all is good now. Okay, so I just want to provide a really transparent way for how I got to where Her Body Wisdom is at today. And I can definitely go deeper into this. Feel free to ask me any specific questions that you have, and I can absolutely go deeper into this transition that I had, because I really do feel like on the internet it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And if you look around at people who started their own businesses, it kind of looks like they just quit their job and felt great about the fact that they were starting their passion project, and from there everything exploded, when really that's not the case. And growth really doesn't have to be linear, and it doesn't have to be like you quit your job and then you stepped into this desire that was planted in your heart and it all just boomed from there. And for a lot of us, that would feel very unsafe to just quit our jobs and to not have any means to back up our business, and that would create a lot of scarcity and a lot of fears. And so I definitely do not advise that if that doesn't feel great. It has worked for some people, but I also believe that I want to be transparent about this transition for me, because I feel as though there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of people that maybe are just kind of not being fully transparent with how that transition went for them. And so that's why I support a lot of women in my field, in my practice, that are desiring to build that safety, that resiliency within their nervous system, so that they can put their dreams out there and they can start a business that feels like it is their passion and what it is that they truly want to do. And so many of us have the desire deep within us, but we don't really know how to get to it, because we're so caught up on the how and so caught up on the limiting beliefs. And so that's what I'm so passionate about, is helping women really step into that sense of safety within their bodies so that they can access that dream, that desire for that business that they so want to create. And I also noticed in my business that a lot of women were coming to me feeling really crumbled by their anxious attachment style. One of the most common things that I would see in my one-on-one and group containers is women that felt as though their anxious attachment style was like destroying their relationships. Maybe it was making it so that they couldn't find a man that was emotionally available and they were having a really hard time and struggling with dating. Or maybe it was the woman who is like waiting for a proposal from her boyfriend of a couple years, and she felt so anxious and just had so much in her body that was making her feel so graspy towards this proposal. Or maybe even in a marriage, I've worked with so many women that feel that they have that anxiety within their marriage as well, and do not feel safe with space in their marriage. Really shifted the last few months into supporting women that specifically are feeling really crumbled by their anxious attachment style. And so now I'll kind of go into like I spoke to how I became a holistic OT and like the business side and like all my OT experience and all of that. And I definitely can go more into that if you all desire that too, because I also became like a yoga instructor, and there's just like so many things that really helped me evolve into what Her Body Wisdom is today. But I felt really called to helping women with their anxious attachment style because not only were so many women coming to me for that, but I actually healed my anxious attachment style as well. And I'm in a relationship that feels so nurturing to my body and myself. And let me tell you that it wasn't always the case in my life. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how I personally healed my anxious attachment style. So I dated a lot of emotionally unavailable people in my life, and not to go like super specific into all of, what happened and all of that, but I had a very hard time. I felt like I got the school thing down. Like I was like, I feel very confident in myself as becoming an OT and, becoming a practitioner. And I felt like very independent. I felt like I could make decisions on my own, all of that. But when it came to relationships, I really struggled because I did not feel safe in my body so that somebody else could be there for me. So I attracted a lot of emotionally unavailable men in my life and just things that were just not really aligned for me. And I had to experience a lot of heartbreak as well. And it was really hard because a lot of times when you're anxiously attached, you attract men that are really avoidant. And so I had to work through a lot of that pain. It was very confronting, and it was very much something that I knew I needed to heal. And on top of all of that, I was going through so much because my dad was diagnosed with cancer and he ultimately passed away. And I had to work through a lot of that grief with my dad's passing that really helped me become a lot more secure in my body. And I will say that the relationship that I'm in now, since it is a healthy relationship, that it's brought me face to face with a lot of my triggers and a lot of things that I really needed to heal. I met my current significant other a few months after my dad had passed, and I definitely was not anticipating that to happen at all, but I feel as though it was kind of like our path that was meant to be. And I had to learn how to regulate my emotions because when he first came into my life, he really helped me feel better from all of that grief that I was holding. But I quickly realized that I just could not rely on him to help me move through every emotion that came up in my body, and that it was up to me to soothe my nervous system and to heal these wounds that were coming up from my childhood and my dad's passing. And if I didn't, then I would sabotage the relationship and it just wouldn't work out. And so I learned that I needed to soothe my own nervous system and to confront those wounds of my relationship anxiety and my fear that just everything was going to fall apart, and that if he wasn't showing up for me, then I needed to show up more and do more and be more in the relationship. And I had to learn how to really lean back and trust that if this relationship was meant for me, then it would be, and there would be no stopping it because it was so meant for me. And it took a long time of coming back to my body to heal when I was in that fight or flight or freeze fawn nervous system reaction. When I got triggered, I had to rewire my brain to learn how to soothe myself and not just want to be fixed. I was so tempted to want him to fix it all for me, but I had to do it myself. And the amazing thing is when I learned that, our relationship, we just created so much more intimacy and growth together because it was that choice of, okay, I'm going to take our relationship as a mirror to look inside myself and realize, I'm triggered by certain things that made me feel like I was going to be abandoned, but it was up to me to heal that and to look inside and to see where exactly that hole is in myself that I needed to patch up, that wound that I needed to nurture and to really heal. And I have absolutely healed my anxious attachment style. I believe that it's something that we learn to live with. And the more we create and cultivate that sense of safety within our bodies, the more that we actually heal from anxious attachment style and heal from these things that are very triggering to us. But it does take radical responsibility to look inside. Because so often when you lean towards the anxious side, it's so easy to point the finger and to think that it's the other person's responsibility to change all of these things that you have in mind that you want them to change and fix. But really, it's about choosing ourselves. And when we choose ourselves and cultivate that sense of safety within, the relationship that is meant to be for you will be there. And then if it's not meant for you, if it's like toxic and just not the right thing, then it'll fall apart. And I'm sharing all of this with you today because I want you to remember that this is all possible for you. This is what I help all of my clients move through in a very holistic way. And I use my experience as an occupational therapist, a holistic occupational therapist, a yoga instructor, a trauma healer. I take all of those things and I merge them all together to help my clients get into their bodies so that they can safely find more safety within, to move through their triggers, to heal their wounds, and to feel more confident and secure in their love. And it's truly been one of the greatest gifts that I've ever been able to help people move through. And I do feel as though it is like what I've been created to bring to the world. And so I'm so excited to see how things continue to evolve with Her Body Wisdom. So I just went on a deep dive into my story as how I became a holistic OT and why I'm so drawn to helping women heal their anxious attachment style. This went a little bit longer than what I thought that it would. And I kind of think that it's really important to share all this with you. So I'm going to make a part 2 for the Q&A. I'm going to leave this as part 1. And then next week, I will sit down with y'all and film part 2 for the rest of the questions. But I really just felt that it was necessary for me to explain to you how exactly I got here and where I plan on taking this. And really just, again, building this community of amazing women that have been in my field. And so make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get first access to when part 2 drops next week. And I'm so excited. And feel free to submit any questions to me if you have any other questions that I can drop into part 2. But so grateful for you all, and I'll see you next week.